Hey folks, footwells here. Right, in this video we're going to be looking at the Axial SCX10 Jeep Rubicon body shell, taking it from this stage onto painting and finally peeling off the mask and having a lovely shiny painted body shell. Before I get into the painting, I just wanted to give you a few little tips from my experience of cutting out the roof and the windscreen. Obviously, if you don't have this body shell, you might want to skip on to the painting, but for those of you doing a Jeep Rubicon body, last time I'd got all the flares fitted and everything else, and that was looking good, and I've gone on to cut out the roof and the windscreen. That was fairly standard. Just a few things to be careful of. When you cut out, as always, as I recommend, don't cut exactly along the cutout lines on the Lexan. Cut 3 or 4 millimeters lower than they show, and then start to position it on the rest of the body shell and work out where things are going to fit. Generally, certainly around the back and the sides, the axial cutout lines were pretty good. I've ended up about 1 millimeter lower. However, on the front, be really careful. So trim below the cut lines and start to put the roof on, put the windshield on, just offer them up. Don't drill any holes yet. Have lots of fiddling around with the fitment. What I found worked well was the roof itself sits down onto the main body shell. It doesn't overlap exactly here. The body shell comes up, I'm not sure if you can quite see that because it's clear, but there's a slight chamfer just here where the body shell starts to angle in slightly. Right, it angles in that way. The roof sits down probably about, what's that, 2 or 3 millimeters above where that angle starts to come in there. So that's roughly your height for the body. Obviously you're also dictated by where it touches on the roll cage. You can't go down lower than that. So get your roof on first. There is a little lip on the front of the roof just along here. Don't cut all the way to where the roof is. Have this little lip that the windshield will go over. Leave that in the Lexan because that will overlap, and then you won't see a gap there. So get your roof on first, and then start to offer up the windshield. The key thing on this is these parts just here and here, where it curves down. The windshield sits down in a trench on the main body shell, about probably 1 or 2 millimeters down. If you cut too much material away here, you're going to end up with just being able to see straight through into the cabin, which is not good. I've got this side filed fairly nicely. I'm happy with that. I did file slightly too much there, and I've got a tiny gap. I think if I push the windshield down slightly, it'll close that gap. I might move my screw hole slightly. The screw holes that fit the windshield onto the roll cage, quite straightforward. They go roughly where in between these two little lumps on the casting on the Lexan. Don't take that as your marking point though. Put your windshield on the body shell and see where it wants to sit and where all the overlaps are nice, and then drill the hole. You might be maybe hitting the first lump or the second lump. Mine ended up pretty much in the middle, but be careful with yours. The overlap between the roof and the windshield carries on all the way down on the sides. Where there's this casting on the roll cage where the screw goes in, I had to cut a little bit out of the roof overlap just to clear that just there. And then down here where you've got the windshield, this little lip sits in the gap just here on the main body shell. So you can file that down so it pretty much fits exactly in there. So overall the roof fits pretty nicely. There's a nice closed gap here. There's a slight lifting I found just here we can see through. I couldn't get that to sit any nicer than that. I don't think you're going to notice when you're running it. Well, one last thing on cutting out, while I was moving the body shell on and off of the truck to work out where things would sit and if the wires were going to foul on the underside of the body shell, that kind of stuff. I happened to just pull the radiator grill slightly, and I haven't finished trimming off the edge of the body shell under here, and I've got a nasty 90-degree cut at the moment that I would normally smooth out into a curve. Haven't done that yet, and I don't know if you can just see here that the body shell just there has split. Got about a 3-4 millimeters split in the Lexan. Yeah, lesson learnt there. Always with a round file or a round bit in your Dremel, always smooth those kind of joins out. Anyway, enough of cutting all that out. let's get some paint on. So for this, normally on body shells I just use masking tape. I'm not doing that. I'm going for liquid mask this time. Hemistorm, and I'll put a link in the description, has a fantastic video series on using liquid mask and cutting out to do some really nice paint effects. Fantastic video, have a look at it. That's inspired me to use liquid mask. I've not used it before. The reason I need some really good masking is on the inside of this body shell I want to mask off different parts of the cabin differently. We've got the fuel cell, we've got the back seats, the front seats, we've got cross members on the chassis compared to what would be plastic interior. I want those different colours. I'm not going to do the entire interior the same colour. Using masking tape around all of these complicated shapes is just not going to work. It's not going to give me a good clean cut line. It's going to peel off and they're going to get spray paint coming through. So I'm going to be roughing up the inside of the body shell, cleaning it off with soapy water, then putting 4 coats of this liquid mask on. There's various products out there you can get. This one's by Parma, but you can find lots of other liquid masking products. That's just a kind of a paint on latex. 4 coats of that, which will be drying over the next 4 days, I guess, and then I can start spraying. Right, so now the body shell's prepared, I'm now liquid masking using the Parma Fast Mask. Other liquid masking products are available. I have stuck on some of the Axial kind of like masking tape masks that come with the kit, but to be honest with you, I wasn't particularly impressed with them. The headlight circles are fairly good, they are an accurate fit for the body shell, but the ones that go over the windows don't go right to the edge of what would be the glass, so you are forced, if you're using the Axial masks, to stick the black stickers that go around the edge of the windows on. Now, I don't really want to have those stickers on the outside of my body shell because they're just going to wear off over time. So I'm going to rely on the liquid mask here. So I'm just going to build up 4 coats of this. This is going to be quite fiddly to do on the main body shell because I've got to stuff it in everywhere, but patience should pay back on this, and then we can start spraying. Right, so there's the main body shell coated with the liquid mask. Looks horrible at the moment, but it doesn't really matter. This sort of misty light blue colour will change to almost completely clear once it's dry. That's the first coat. Got about another 3 or probably 4 to go, making a total of about 5. It's difficult to coat around some of these complicated shapes, so they're going to need quite a few coats. I've brought the liquid mask around the outside of the body shell, although there is the overspray film, where I've cut so many holes and been filing and whatnot, it's peeled away slightly in places, so the liquid mask's covering that just to make sure that overspray won't get around the edge of the body. And now we've got lots of drying. This stuff takes at least 12 hours to dry between coats, so it's definitely kind of one or 2 coats a day if you're lucky. Right, about a week has passed. I showed this to one of our children yesterday and they said, "Yay, Daddy, you've painted the body shell." No. But it was quite amusing. Here we now have 3 coats of liquid mask all on the body, giving it this kind of, I don't know how well it comes out on the camera, but a very slight blue tinge. It's all kind of tacky and rubbery. So we've got our liquid mask on and dry. It's been in a room about 19 to 20 degrees centigrade. It takes about a day and a half between coats to dry. While I was doing that, I've been planning out what colours I want where. Obviously when you're painting inside you do the darkest colour first, and so on and so on. I'm trying to do something a little bit clever, as you can see in the interior of the SCX10 body shell. I didn't want to just go black everywhere or silver or whatever. I wanted to actually have different colours for different parts. I'm going to have the seats hopefully gunmetal, the kind of footwells and black plastic of the dashboard and the centre console black, the fuel tank red, this kind of rear deck area black, and then you've kind of got, well, I'm imagining you've got like a cross member going across here for the chassis and another one going across there. I'm going to do those silver, same colour as the body, and then some little running sill guards, going to be black along there. So it's all masked off and colour coded. I have just spent a long time carefully cutting the liquid mask, which I'm going to start to peel off and start to spray. I am not an expert in this at all. This is my first liquid masked body shell. It's been inspired by Hemistorm. Link up here to some excellent videos he's done on liquid masking and cutting. It's this fantastic body shell he's done really inspired me. This isn't going to be anything like that, but you know, I'm giving it a go. Have a look at his videos, they are awesome. The only tips I would give you with regards to liquid masking, or at least on the cutting, is you can get all sorts of different knives. Scalpels or blades like this are no good. They are too flexible. If you start to try and do a line, it's going to go wobbly. That's no good. You want a blade like this. I think in some places it's called an X-Acto blade. Nice, stiff, stronger metal blade, and change your blade quite regularly. You know, I cut the interior here, then change the blade. Make sure it's super sharp. Also, wherever possible, try to give yourself something to rest on. So when you're cutting, get a ruler. I don't have one to hand. Imagine that was a ruler. Put the ruler down on the line and then cut against the ruler. You just will get better lines. Freehand cutting, it's too easy to slip and suddenly go in the wrong direction. A lot of people say how, and I wanted to know, how deep do you cut? If you cut too far, you will scratch into the Lexan and you'll see it through the body shell even when it's painted. There isn't an easy way to explain that. Simply put, go try it on some test Lexan. Maybe you've got some offcuts from cutting out your body shell. Go try it. Put some liquid mask on some spare Lexan and go cut it. I was trying to think of how to explain how hard to push in. The only thing I could think of as a description is, if you cut your blade in Lexan itself with no liquid mask, you'll feel it. Obviously you've got resistance on the blade and you can feel it slightly scratchy. It's sort of scratching as it cuts with Lexan. When you're cutting through the liquid mask, you'll feel resistance, but it'll be smooth. So when you're cutting your lines, if it feels smooth but a bit of resistance, you're probably about the right pressure. If it starts to feel scratchy, you're probably going into the Lexan itself. One other little tip I thought I'd mention about working out where you're going to cut your liquid mask. Obviously it all depends on the designer and your model, but what I found really helped, he says, searching for his Sharpie marker, where you know you want to cut on the outside of your body shell, it should have a protective overspray film stuck on. Obviously make sure you do have one before you go doing this, but with your marker pen you can draw around where you want the cut lines to be. Now that is extremely useful. On the flip side, when you've got your body shell up and you're cutting, just follow the black line. If you're in between the black line, you will be fine, is what I've been telling myself. You could spend hours and hours just doing, you know, every corner and curving. I'm not very good at curving these. I have found if you rotate the blade between your thumb and finger as you come to a corner, rather than just trying to twist your whole hand, if you also rotate the blade and your thumb and finger, you can get better corners. But I'm not an expert in this, and it's not going to be the neatest thing in the world, but I'm not going to put myself in an early grave worrying about it. But black lines around here are really make it so easy to cut, and I figure, you know, if I'm in between the thickness of that pen nib line, it's not going to look too bad longer term. Right, I need to start peel off now. I'm on step 2 of my instructions. I've sat down and planned this out because I don't want to do it wrong. I'll try and include these instructions in the description on this video if it will fit, if YouTube lets me use that many words. Right, so I need to do some peeling off now. Let's do this bit first and then I'll go and do the rest off camera, but I thought you guys may as well see the first bit coming off. So I've got the edge of the liquid mask off now. Obviously I don't want to start touching the Lexan, it's all nice and clean under there where it's been washed. So tweezers, and I'm just going to start to peel that off. Now obviously if it comes to a corner and it starts to pull off a bit of liquid mask that it shouldn't do, I need to go and fiddle. Now doing this and thinking about talking and using sensible words is quite difficult, so forgive me while I go and do most of this off camera. But as you can see, here comes the liquid mask. It's actually coming off fairly well around here. Famous last words, I'm sure it's going to go wrong in a moment. We get the idea. I have a lot of this to do now. Once that's done, we'll be getting some paint down, which I'm not going to do on camera. I don't want to get my get my GoPro covered in black paint. So I'll see you on the other side.